So here's Matt Walsh. I came to the conclusion years ago that the trans movement is the greatest evil our country faces. I only become more and more sure of this fact with each passing day and more determined to oppose it until my last breath. You know, this is yet another example of these right-wingers, like, of all the things going on in this country, of all the things that are happening in this country and in this world right now, these people have decided that trans people are the greatest evil out there. You know, you have religious institutions that are, you know, sexually exploiting their parishioners. You have, beyond even stuff like that, you have climate change. You have shrinking wages, have skyrocketing inflation. You have union busting. You have people struggling to put food on the table. You have war going on between Ukraine and Russia and other conflicts across the globe, and U.S. doing drone strikes in nations across the globe. You have sex trafficking and people being trafficked for cheap labor. Like most of the seafood we consume is caught by slaves. Most of the chocolate we eat is picked by slaves. Most of the diamonds we wear are mined by slaves. You have brutal systems of exploitation that treat people horribly. You have a medical system that doesn't care about producing good health outcomes as much as it cares about producing good financial outcomes for the shareholders and insurance companies. I mean, there's a million and one things you could point to. I mean, we have we have the highest per capita prison population of any place. Drug dealing. I like drug dealing personally, but even that would be a more legitimate thing to point to as an evil. At least there's a downside. But you have rapists and murderers and all these things going on. And this guy is going to tell his audience that the most evil, the greatest evil going on in our country today is trans people. And then they're going to act like, oh, did I incite violence? No, I never incited violence. I simply said that trans people are the greatest evil ever and that I'm willing to die to oppose them. Does that incite violence? No. Yeah, it kind of does, man. I'm kind of sick of it. What else we got? This is our last anti-trans thing we're going to look at. This is more anti-drag queen, I guess, but it delves into trans stuff too.
We are fighting a spiritual battle, and they are coming at us in all facets.
Someone just asked, you blanket statement like drug dealing. Really? Yeah, I do. I like drug dealing. I think that drugs should be legal for everybody to consume. I think most of the detriments from drug dealing come from the fact that it's been forced to be a black market product. I think that my contention is borne out if you look at the amount of violence surrounding alcohol during the Prohibition era. When you take a product that people want and you make it illegal, then the only way for people offering that product to compete with each other is through, the enforcement of violence against one another, because there's no state apparatus like the courts or the police to sort of moderate the conflict.
Is drag queens being shown to our children at 3 years of age, and people think it's cute, or they're just trying to make them grow up and not hate drag queens. But it's a deeper battle than that. It's an access, it's a portal, and they are opening our children up to be infected with these perverse spirits, so that by the time they are 8, 9, 10, they start, this spirit of perversion will start coming in them as their hormones kick in, and then they want to cut off their genitalia. So it is not harmless. It is a possession exercise, and the church and the people, we need to know that.
So the idea is that drag queens open up a portal to hell that allow demons through the portal so that they can then possess the brains of the children, so that when their hormones kick in around puberty, they're suddenly overwhelmed by the urge to chop their genitals off. I mean, does this sound even remotely rational? Does this sound even remotely like the intelligent position of a person to be taken seriously? And yet it is taken seriously by a huge swath of this country, which is why, for me, it's pretty much impossible to have respect for the everyday person. A lot of people say that everyone has a certain degree of automatic respect and that they have to do something to lose it. For me, in my book, you have to do something to earn it. You start at zero and you dig your grave from there. This woman is now Sub-Zero. Not the cool one from Mortal Kombat. My respect for her is Sub-Zero. And she would have to do a hell of a lot to get it back into the positive. Not that she needs to care about my respect in particular. Although maybe in the long run, she does need to. I'm sure when you resume the video, TJ, she will cite peer-reviewed scientific sources confirming her claims. I'm sure you're right about that. Unfortunately, it seems like the mainstream media seems to have cut that out. Unfortunately, we're not going to have access to that part, but I'm sure that if we saw the rest of what she said, I'm sure we'd find that she was actually being very empirical and scientific with her claims. I'm sure that she's not just like a lying psycho bitch with delusions of grandeur. I have a right to be disgusted by any behavior used by the human cows, whether you think it's reasonable or not. I agree with you there. I mean, look, no one can control anyone else's personal feelings. That's just the end of the day. You can say what you want to say. You can have the fart fights. You can have the fights you want to have. But, people are going to believe what they believe. People are going to feel the way they feel. People are going to think the way they think. And, you might be able to persuade them otherwise. But ultimately, if someone wants to be disgusted by trans people, they're going to be disgusted by trans people. If someone wants to be disgusted by Christians, they're going to be disgusted by Christians. But what I would advocate is maybe look past just like a visceral emotional reaction to something and actually try to formulate a reasonable position based on evidence, based on some sort of like principles, some sort of code. Even if it's one you've developed entirely on your own, better than nothing. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are guided not by anything other than just like knee-jerk reactions to things. And I've even seen people defend that idea. I've seen people say like, you should never deny your instincts. Well, yeah, you probably should. Because there's nothing about the human brain that makes every instinct that enters into our heads automatically correct. There's nothing about your disgust response that automatically tells you what you need to know about a thing. Like, I was disgusted by guacamole for a long time. And then I tried it and I realized like, oh, it's actually pretty good. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this weird trans panic that seems to exist in right-wing circles is nothing good. It doesn't seem to generate anything good. It doesn't seem to create anything positive for this or any other culture. So I think it should be rightly and justly combated, as hard as possible. I want to show you this, guys. Check this out. You guys might have seen this.
Which do you think are more dangerous, drag shows or guns to children?
Drag shows.
Drag shows. How many people do you think have been killed at a drag show?
I don't know, but the long-term effects are detrimental.
How many people do you think die every year from guns?
I have no idea.
48,000.
48,000? Yeah. Okay. Well, there's probably 100,000 that die from drag shows.
Yeah. Fair enough. Right. That makes sense. About 100,000 that die from drag shows. That seems like a reasonable thing to put out there in the world, right? Yeah, there's probably like 100. Probably like 100,000 people that die from drag shows. If 48,000 children die from guns, must be 100,000 that die from drag, right? Like, he just wanted a number to beat that number. Like, he said, like, I don't know. And then he was told 48,000. And he's like, well, 100,000 then. You just pulled that number out of your ass, though. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, I think the actual death toll from drag shows is probably roughly 0. I don't know. Maybe if you count like right-wingers who die of a heart attack when they see a person in drag, maybe there's a slightly higher death toll there. But by and large, I'm pretty sure there's no one dies from the drag show.
Be a man.